So the people have spoken and apparently they've chosen Oppression. Let's talk about building a superior modular transport tank for all your grimdark wargaming purposes, and all the wild and crazy choices that you guys have made with where the dystopian Iron Enforcers are going next. Hello and welcome back to Warspec Tactics, where today we're doing an update on the whole Iron Enforcers project, a really fun 3D printing project where we basically have free reign to commission a bunch of cool designs and flesh out a dystopian police force with everything it needs to function on the tabletop. The idea behind these guys is that a 3D printing company called Thangs has basically made it so I can commission a whole bunch of miniatures from a chap called Spyros from across the realms. I thought it would be most fun to use the opportunity to really give you guys a big say in what happens with it. The groundwork's been laid for a dystopian sci-fi police force with the first initial unit, and then apparently we can have one mainline unit coming each month, plus a few extra fun ones and free miniatures coming to add more entertainment and grimdark theme. These guys are basically a sci-fi military police force that you really don't want to get on the wrong side of. Somewhere between 1984 Thought Police, Star Wars Stormtroopers, or Peacekeepers from the Hunger Games, basically murderous justice in over-application, and somewhat going for similar kind of themes and tropes to what it did with my 40k Imperial Guard army. Each month you guys are going to get a choice of what comes next, and this time's choice was between option 1 an Oppressor Infantry Fighting Vehicle, basically a heavily armoured APC to get the Enforcers into battle, something along these sort of lines for inspiration and some concept art, or a more heavily armoured elite and armoured force to go alongside the more standard troops, particularly chunky and beefy stormtroopers. With the votes counted, there was a clear winner. You decided that you wanted the transport vehicle this month, so that's exactly what's going to be happening. So it's time to start building a transport tank. I think going forward, the losers of these polls will return at some stage, maybe not straight away in the next month or anything like that. I feel like there's a lot of different ways that we could go with miniatures, it's just more a case of where we go first. For the rest of the video, I want to discuss a few work in progress shots of the Oppressor, ask you for a few ideas and things in some polls below, have a sneaky teaser of one other thing that might well be coming out this month, and just go through all the outpouring of feedback and fun ideas that we got from the first video as to where the project might be going next. The idea going forward is that each month there should be one miniature completely free, available to download on the Thangs website that I'll link in the video description. For this month it's Patrolmen 101, but there'll be something new next month, and then a core offering with a main miniatures, maybe a bonus extra or two, and these are all dispensed as STLs on the Thangs website. It's basically a subscription website that works very similar to Patreon. The idea is that if you subscribe you get everything for that month. It'll be priced at $10 going forward, though given it's new there's some introductory offers for a code ATL30 as you can see, which is 30% off, so this month it's essentially $7 for one infantry squad plus a bunch of cool bases. Any profits of the sub are both dedicated to making more miniatures and funding Mr. Spyros to make cool new designs, and otherwise split between myself, the platform, and the creator. Hopefully if it gets to be self-sustaining, then we can just continue to make fun designs each month based on your guys' polls, and there has definitely been a good amount of interest since it was announced a couple of weeks ago. Feel free to check out the link in the video description if you are interested in any of the designs. As mentioned, on the website there's one completely free miniature in Patrolmen 101, clad in riot gear with a sinister glassy helm and armed with a laser SMG for close quarter skirmishes in the city streets, and well prepared with a wanton disregard for your safety if he spots any voters acting out of line. In any case, hopefully we'll have a good collection of free STLs coming one a month. Otherwise, he's part of this month's offering, the Iron Enforcer Patrolmen. I went over them properly in the last video, but they're a big squad of 14 miniatures, including a bunch of more generic guys with laser submachine guns, and then a bunch of special weapons, a sergeant with a brutal energy maul, a few specialists, and a bunch of guys with batons to pacify the populace. I certainly enjoyed a few of the little details that Mr. Spyros put on here, particularly the flamethrower one was one that I quite liked. The tank on the back very euphemistically written H2O. Not sure if it's got any dual function as a water cannon for crowd control, but it definitely looks like it's equipped for flames at the moment given that ignition. They're the offering for June, and as mentioned they're available on Thangs on the link in the video description. Finally, for the Patrolman launch, one bit of feedback that I got in the last video was basically people asking how they could get their hands on them if they didn't happen to own a 3D printer, maybe didn't have space to run one, or don't have someone in your local network who prints things. And to that end, Wargame Portal has stepped up to the plate once more. They're my channel affiliates for Warhammer 40k miniature sales in the USA, and also run the Auspex Tactics merchandise store. The talented Mr. Mac who runs that has already had an established 3D printing business going for quite a long time, so it seemed like quite a good match. Basically, if you want a pre-printed Enforcer squad containing the full 14 sculpts on the previous slide, including a variety of the heads and things and all the sergeant weapons, that's now available as its own thing on Wargame Portal. I'll leave that linked in the video description. It's $27 for the full 14, available in local currencies as well. It's based in the USA, so shipping will be less stateside and might be a bit more of a premium overseas, but hopefully that should be helpful to some of you who might have wanted to get your hands on the miniatures, but don't happen to dabble in resin miniature production yourself. Hopefully if all goes smoothly, then he'll be able to offer the other miniatures as they come out. Back to today's business though, and as per your guys' choices on the big vote, it looks like we're making a transport tank for the Iron Enforcers to come out later this month. The Oppressor Infantry Fighting Vehicle will be the state's weapon of choice for July. The idea for this one is a basic grimdark futuristic APC, and something that could be fairly modular and general purpose in application, and just really keep the amount of choices and options high, so different collectors could use it in different ways for their purposes. To get the ball rolling, I had a bit of a discussion with the creator Spiros, and largely led by him we decided to go for weapons fully turret mounted, both a primary weapon and a secondary weapon side by side, and then that meant if we didn't have anything on the hull there could be a frontal assault ramp option. You could just model it completely closed, but it seemed like quite a fun idea to be able to deploy a whole squad of enforcers to the battlefield with a bit of articulation, and disgorging a squad of militarized police to put down a riot or something. One thing that Spiros was also keen to do was a choice of tracks versus wheels. It would make it a bit more complicated with the design, but it meant that you could have two really quite different looking infantry fighting vehicles, depending on what sort of theme that you were going for your army, and I must admit I did quite like the big wheeled design that I'd found just by googling police transports before. Finally, he was also really keen to make the interior a bit detailed as well. That's something that's maybe going a bit extra for a model. You're not going to see that from the outside, of course, but you kind of know it's there, and maybe it's a mark of hobbying being taken to the next level if you open up the thing and you can actually see inside it, and it's somewhat painted. These are the work in progress shots that you can see so far. Very much not the finished design, but you can get a rough grasp of how it's going to be set up, broadly going by that concept art. It's got the rough shapes and contours that it's going to have, though the entire upper surfaces of it aren't detailed yet, but you can see the main focus of the tank, the turret shape, a little hatch for the tank commander driver person to be able to stick his head out of if he needs to. I quite like the overall first look of it. I could certainly imagine it rumbling along some ruined city streets, dissidents and rebels falling back before the armoured might. Maybe the only first criticism that I had of it was that when the door opens it looks like it might obscure the turret and the driver a little. Might be best to try and have it so it maximally opens horizontally, so that's not really as much of a factor. I guess it is quite an ambitious little vehicle, both going for a turret and a frontal assault ramp on the same thing. In any case though, as you can see, it's still very much a work in progress at the moment, and there's still time for changes if some good ideas come in. I'll both read and respond to a whole load of comments from the bottom of this video, and I'll also add a new Google feedback form to collate things a bit if you'd like to give your say on that at all. The main things that I'd like to hear from you are things that you like about it, things that you dislike, and ideas for improvement, and particularly any other fun things to add a bit of theme. One thing that I thought about from that point of view would maybe be having some sort of water cannon type tank. I feel like that might be one that comes a bit later though, as opposed to being this one. Maybe could do a variant on the same chassis later. In any case, this one will wind up being the primary offering for the July version on the sub, and I'll be back to show off the finished model around about the 31st of June. Otherwise, I must admit I was really impressed by the sheer amount of creativity and the amount that people resonated with this and jumped on the theme. I really tried to reply to a good number of comments on the last video, as there was a serious amount of good stuff. I certainly read all of them, and I've been trying to collate the ideas into some sort of rough breakdown as to what you'd like to see next. One of the top voted comments was this one. Draconic Rift suggested the idea of some sort of sci-fi Segway riders. That was the top voted comment on the last video, so it seems like a bunch of other people are on board with that, or we might just have something coming along that sort of themes at the end of the month for another offering for July. Seems like the Oppressor might not be the only thing rumbling around with a bit of justice on tracks. Maybe one of the other more obvious ideas for a unit that I really should have thought of myself beforehand was some sort of Enforcer dog handler type unit. A pretty massive amount of you folks jumped on that theme either down in the comments or in the ideas poll. It was just a few people who suggested something along those lines, and I feel like that's far too good an idea to pass up. To further expand on that theme though, there's a few options that we could go down. Definitely not saying that we couldn't do multiple at some point, but if we did go for some sort of dog handler type unit, which one of the ones would you like to see? Would you like to see fully drone dogs, maybe something like Boston Dynamics, as suggested by Mr. Stotey Stote here? Maybe some sort of unholy fusion of animal and machine with some cyber dogs, turning them into a savage amalgam of beast and metal claws? Or shall we keep things fully organic? Just have some enforcers deploying some great big armoured bruisers to the board, some regular flesh and blood hounds but up armoured and ready to dispense justice. I'll add that one to the whole poll regarding the Oppressor vehicle as well, and I'll report back on which one you choose in the next video. For another part of the feedback, I asked you guys which you'd like to see out of a whole host of different ideas, things that could fit in well for the Iron Enforcers in a grimdark dystopian cyber police force, and to be honest it looked like most of it was at least fairly popular. There were some standout picks. People think that we should get some Riot Shield infantry on the go, which does feel like a basic really. Hopefully that should be at least fairly soon. But beyond that, quite a lot of things like patrolmen bikers, exo-armoured shock troops, a patrol walker with a great big searchlight, a truck or SWAT type transport vehicle might give it a bit of a break after the Oppressor, but I think that could be a great one to realise down the line. Maybe some grimdark civilians and citizens, a few voters to be put in their place, and for a bit of a different aesthetic, maybe a penal colony bomb collar type troops choice, maybe somewhat similar to Suicide Squad. That feels like exactly the sort of cannon fodder unit that these Iron Enforcers would enjoy. Otherwise, just to round up a few other good ideas that people submitted in the Google Forms doc, I did quite like the idea of the police negotiator with megaphone, which a couple of people said something along the same lines. I did enjoy the dark humour of Mr. Giotto earlier of a peace negotiator with a megaphone, paired with a police sniper just in case the negotiations happen to break down. There was a lot of call for a flyer or holo transport of some kind. I guess that feels kind of on theme for the sort of way that a lot of these justice dispensers might get around in various films and settings where there's people that have their same sort of tropes, descending from upon high with all the power of technology and backing of a great state. Helicopter or VTOL style things do seem very on theme. For a character miniature idea, people thought about a shadowy inspector or agent. Perhaps could do something like a gunslinger for that. And there was a surprising amount of shout outs for enforcers eating donuts. Again, we might be able to see what we can do with that one. Could be fun for a fun one-off release or something. Finally, over the past few days or so, around big codex reviews and stuff coming out on the channel, I have had a chance for a bit of painting. I've got far too much going on in terms of my pile of shame and miniatures on the go at the moment, but I've decided to try and work out a test scheme for my own Iron Enforcers. This one trying to stick at least kind of close to my Astra Militarum regiment, going for a sort of Stormtrooper white plating. I tend to use gold, green, and orange for spot details usually. Green tends to be the sort of lens or light type colour, so I thought I'd try out the visors in a sort of shadowy dark green. I feel like I like the overall effect of it. Not sure if I should try and pick out a few of the armour plates in a bit of orange or red or something like that to mix it up a bit. I can always do that later though, and I might try doing that to see how the squad looks on the whole before I go with that. It should be fun to build them up as their own little collection month on month. In any case, that's about it for today. I have to admit I'm thoroughly enjoying this as a little project, and a massively thank you to all the ideas, suggestions, and the people who've actually signed up to the subscription, and it does look like this is overall viable to be going forward, as I really quite like to make these videos a regular thing, keep on going month on month, basically ask what you guys want to see next, and then have fun delivering on it, with Mr. Spiros making up some cool designs and adding in a bit of dark humour here and there. If you're interested in any of it, then check out any and all of the links in the video description. The main page is the actual thanks one, the one called Across the Legions for the Iron Enforcers. That's where the sub and the free miniature for Patrolmen 101 is. I'll leave a link to the Google form for feedback on the Oppressor. Let me know what you like or dislike about that and anything else fun that we can add to it. Hopefully we can turn it into a transport that's useful to a lot of you out there. And check out Wargame Portal if you'd like any physical enforcers. Quite fun to have them launch and go on sale just like any other miniature out there. Big thanks to Wargame Portal for that. In any case, I'll hopefully be around to answer a bunch of questions down in the comments for a bit, so feel free to check in down there. Otherwise, I'll be back for the next update on the project at the end of the month, showing off the final Oppressor vehicle, including a couple of other goodies, including a free miniature offering and a most mysterious tracked vehicle that I'm sure you'd have no idea what it is. In any case, I'll be back for some more regularly scheduled content and some 40k tactics and things sometime within the next 12 hours or so. I'll certainly be keeping the videos coming. And until then, a massive thank you for watching, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.